Hi, I am Nirmala Devi, serving as Assistant Professor in the Department of Biochemistry, Biotechnology and Bioinformatics, Avinashalingam Institute for Home Science and Higher Education for Women, Coimbatore. Let's do the lesson on immobilized plant cells for production of food flavors and color. The food industry plays an important role in our present day society. Without the food industry, urbanization would not have been possible. As far as food flavors and fragrances are concerned, the debate over the natural versus nature identical versus synthetic plays an important role. For many of the natural plant derived flavors and fragrances, the cost and availability of the raw materials and therefore the prices of the food flavors are subjected to concern. Therefore, plant tissue culture have been considered as a means of producing raw materials for these compounds. The main objective of this module is to learn about flavor enhancers and colorants that are used in food products, and also to discuss about the use of immobilization methods for the production of flavoring compounds and colorants. Introduction. Flavor is usually the result of the presence within complex matrices of many volatile and non-volatile components possessing diverse chemical and physicochemical properties. The non-volatile compounds contribute mainly to the taste, whereas the volatile ones influence both taste and aroma. A vast array of compounds may be responsible for the aroma of the food products such as alcohols, aldehydes, esters, dicarbonyls, short to medium chain free fatty acids, methyl ketones, lactones, phenolic compounds and sulfur compounds. Since early times, flavor compounds ranging from single to complex substances have been extracted from plant sources. Eventually, after elucidation of their structure, synthetic flavors were produced by chemical synthesis. Nowadays, flavors represent over a quarter of the world market for food additives, and most of the flavoring compounds are produced via chemical synthesis or by extraction from natural materials. However, recent market surveys have shown that consumers prefer foodstuff that can be labeled as natural. Although flavors may be produced by chemical transformation of natural substances, the resulting products cannot legally be labeled as natural. Furthermore, chemical synthesis often results in environmentally unfriendly production processes and lacks substrate selectivity, which may cause the formation of undesirable racemic mixtures, thus reducing process efficiency and increasing downstream cost. On the other hand, the production of natural flavors by direct extraction from plants is also subject to various problems. These raw materials often contain low concentrations of the desired compound, making the extraction process expensive. Moreover, their use depends on factors difficult to control such as weather conditions and plant disease states. The disadvantages of both the methods and the increasing interest in natural products have now directed many investigations towards the search for other strategies to produce natural flavors. Food colors. The purpose of adding these agents is to just impart high aesthetic appeal to the foods. Food colors could be either of natural origin such as green color derived from chlorophyll, red, blue and purple derived from anthocyanins and carotenoids rendering red, yellow and orange color, or synthetics that are derived from coal tar dyes such as tartrazine and Ponceo 4 red providing yellow and red color respectively. However, the list is shrinking day by day due to rigid specifications exist on the use of artificial or coal tar dyes as food colorants. This has paved the way for natural colors. Pigments such as beta carotene and the beet pigments are extracted from natural sources. Curcumin is the yellow pigment in the spice turmeric, the dried powdered roots of the turmeric, that is Curcuma longa. It is used in coloring baked goods such as cakes and also in ice cream. Coccinelle is a group of red pigments from various dead female insects that are used in the form of dried powder. Carminic acid obtained from coccinelle by hot water extraction gives bright colored complexes with aluminum salts, and these can be precipitated by ethanol to give water soluble powder. And now this slide shows the permissible levels of food additives as per PFA of India. FSSAI regulations on food colors. The FSSAI regulations for food coloring are covered under the category coloring matter in the Food Safety and Standards, that is Food Product Standards and Food Additives Regulations 2011. The regulations say that no coloring matter may be added to food unless permitted in these regulations. When used in the preparation of any article of food, shall be pure and free from any harmful impurities. FSSAI permits the use of the colorants as shown here, whether derived naturally or manufactured artificially. And this slide shows the food products in which FSSAI permit colors as additive. Now let's see production of food flavors. The International Organization of Flavor Industry defines flavor enhancers as a substance with little or no odor at the level used, the primary purpose of which is to increase the flavor effect of certain food components well beyond and flavor contributed directly by the substance itself. Flavor enhancers or flavor potentiators are known to be the chemical substances that have little flavor of their own, but when mixed with food products have the ability to enhance the flavor of the food. The best known, extensively and worldwide used flavor enhancers are nothing but monosodium glutamate, disodium inosinate and disodium guanylate. These compounds accentuate meaty flavor and have found applications as flavor potentiators in soups, sauces, gravies and many other savory products. Flavoring agents, that is lipolytic enzymes, are produced from a variety of organisms including Mucor, Mayhei and Myricoccum, Aspergillus, Rhizobus and Bacillus species. These preparations have both lipase as well as esterase enzyme activities and are used in the food industry to produce desirable flavors in cheese production. The enzyme hydrolyzes triglycerides to form free fatty acids which can then be converted to ketones. The enzyme can be prepared by absorbing onto diatomaceous earth at low pH followed by desorption at higher pH and imparts a flavor characteristics of the animal from which it is derived. Neutral proteases have also been found to accelerate cheese ripening by increasing the development of flavor, whereas acid and alkaline proteases cause bitter tastes. The acceleration of cheese ripening provides a major opportunity for enzymes in the dairy industry in the near future. In the cheese making process, rennet, pepsin and microbial milk coagulation enzymes can all be added to the milk together with the starter culture of lactobacillus. A curd is then formed by coagulation of the casein, which is separated from the whey and then pressed. Then proteases and lipases are added together with the moles appropriate to the type of cheese being formed in order to develop the texture and flavor of the cheese. An alternative approach is to encapsulate the cheese ripening enzymes and the milk components, and then the milk fat microcapsules are added to the pasteurized milk before it is made into cheese. In the formation of soya sauce from soya beans, proteases are added for fermentation so as to reduce its duration. Cultures of Aspergillus oryzae and Sojae can be immobilized as complex mixtures of endo and exoproteases with both acidic neutral and alkaline pH optima. In addition, treatment with carbohydrates is also carried out to degrade undesirable sugars such as oligosaccharides including stachyose and raffinose. Also, neutral proteases have all been used to remove the characteristic bean flavor in the manufacture of soya milk. Phosphodiesterase is the enzyme that are derived from Aspergillus and Penicillium species or used to degrade yeast RNA into its constituent ribonucleotides. In its second step, adenosine monophosphate is converted into inosine monophosphate by the enzyme AMP deaminase that is obtained from Aspergillus oryzae. And this guanosine, adenosine and inosine mononucleotides are useful flavoring agents which enhance the flavor of monosodium glutamate when added in equimolar amounts. A sourdough flavor suitable for baking can be prepared from treated curd and lactic acid. The curd is separated, inoculated with organisms that produce extracellular esterases, lipases and proteases and further incubated. A continuous hydrolytic process using immobilized enzymes has also been developed. The use of cell wall degrading enzymes in the extraction of plant oils and resin is widespread because of the resulting reduced extraction times and increased yield of the product. It is interesting that one of the roles of the enzymes is to increase the rate of rehydration of dried plant tissues. Cellulase, hemicellulase and proteases are the enzymes, especially common active components in such preparations. Pseudomonas foetida immobilized in an agar gel has been used to degrade caffeine on a laboratory scale. However, production of decaffeinated coffee by treatment with supercritical carbon dioxide appears to be preferred in practice. Now let us see commercial production of extracts rich in flavor enhancers. Traditionally, the most commonly used flavor potentiators other than table salt are the naturally occurring food preparations rich in monosodium glutamate as exemplified by kombu or sea tangle, that is Laminaria japonica, used by Oriental culture for centuries. And this flavor potentiator, like the 5' nucleotides and GMP and IMP, generally is known to stimulate the corresponding taste buds to bring about the full savory character in foods. Yeast extracts and hydrolyzed vegetable proteins are commercially available products rich in glutamic acid. They have been used extensively by the food industry as flavoring agents. Now, first let us see yeast extract. Yeast extract is a concentrate of the soluble fraction of yeast generally made following autolysis, which essentially a degradation process that is carried out by activating the yeast's own degradative enzymes to solubilize the cellular components found in the cell. Autolysis or self-digestion of viable yeast cells take place at an acceptable pace when the yeast slurry is maintained at 45 to 55 degrees centigrade for about 24 to 34 hours at the pH range of 5 to 6. Lysis of these live whole cells is primarily brought about the action of beta-1,3 glucanase and protease enzymes present in the cells. The beta-1,6 glucanase and mannanase enzymes participate in the further solubilization process of the cell wall matrix. More than 40 different proteolytic enzymes have been identified to till date in Saccharomyces cerevisiae, of which only a few can be described as vital to the autolytic process. A few of the important proteolytic enzymes that play a major role during the lytic process are proteinases, carboxypeptidases. All these soluble proteases appear to be localized in the vacuole, whereas their inhibitors are in the cytoplasm, that is outside the vacuole. Such compartmentalization segregates the biologically compatible components from the corresponding enzymes to allow the control and integration of the intracellular activities for the orderly functioning of the viable cell. Under autolytic conditions, the gradual breakdown of barriers in the highly compartmentalized cell matrix releases proteolytic enzymes from the vacuole into the degenerating cell matrix. And these enzymes are at first inactivated because of the formation of the complexes with corresponding inhibitors present in the immediate vicinity. This inactivation is evident when proteinase A and B are extracted by autolysis at pH 7. However, incubation of the yeast at pH 5 caused reactivation of these proteinase enzyme by the proteolytic inactivation of the firmly bound inhibitors. The vacuolar proteinases are involved in highly non-specific protein and peptide degradations. Likewise, nucleases present in the cell begin to act on the RNA and DNA, reducing them to polynucleotides, mononucleotides and nucleosides or free bases. These processes can, however, be enhanced by initially subjecting the yeast to an external protease attack, for example, by the help of the enzyme pepine, followed by treatment with a lytic enzyme such as glucanase. These enzymes are currently available commercially to improve the extract yield during yeast autolytic process. Glucanase enzymes have been isolated from yeast and are known to hydrolyze the beta-1,3 and beta-1,6 linkages of the glycan building blocks of the cell wall. The glucanase enzymes are known to participate in the budding process also. Nonetheless, under autolytic conditions, beta-1,3 glucanase enzymes with support from the proteinases are capable of disrupting the cell wall, thereby facilitating the release of the soluble compounds such as amino acids, peptides, mononucleotides and other degraded low molecular weight materials from within the cell matrix. The yeast proteases have a broad specificity for their substrates and they are known to exhibit different pH and temperature optima. Therefore, the process conditions used by the extract manufacturers are not optimal for all proteolytic enzymes. Consequently, the variation of flavor profiles of extracts made by autolysis under different pH and temperature conditions is understandable. Thus, the control of conditions of autolysis is vital to maintain product quality and consistency. Glutamic acid is the most abundant amino acid in a vast majority of proteins found in foods. Proteolytic degradation during autolytic results in the release of glutamic acid into the medium. When protein hydrolysis is incomplete, it is common to find some glutamic acid units as parts of peptides. Such bound glutamic acid generally exhibits minimal influence on the flavor. The free glutamic acid can be in equilibrium with the number of the ionic forms that are dependent on the environmental pH. The predominant ionic form of glutamic acid at a pH range of 5.5 to 8, which is the common pH of most food systems, has a net negative charge. Under these conditions, both glutamic acid and monosodium glutamate appears to be present as the glutamate ion, thus enhancing the sensory properties of the food. Yeast extracts rich in flavor enhancing nucleotides such as 5'-GMP and IMP also are being produced by Candida utilis by heating a cell suspension for 30 minutes at 80 degree to 100 degrees centigrade. Then cooling the medium to 40 degrees and treating with the enzyme proteinase, phosphodiesterase and deaminase enzymes. The suspension is then centrifuged and the supernatant rich in 5' nucleotides is concentrated and spray dried. The resulting product is claimed to have properties particularly effective in improving the flavor of savory meats, gravies, sauces and soups. Now the second one we will see is hydrolyzed vegetable protein. Another important development in the food industry is the production of amino or peptide savory flavoring from soybeans, wheat and other plant substrates by acid hydrolysis. The products made by this procedure are commonly referred to as hydrolyzed vegetable protein. However, acid hydrolysis is known to bring about the destruction of certain amino acids and vitamins, resulting in a decline in the nutritive value. Additionally, HVPs made using HCl have been found to contain monochloro and dichloropropanols that are generally known as carcinogens, that is causing cancer. One way to minimize the formation of such undesirable compounds is to provide a partial proteolysis of the protein substrate initially, after which the content is subjected to a much milder acid hydrolytic process, and some of the vegetable proteins selected for this process are generally high in glutamic acid. Processes that are designed to use acid hydrolysis exclusively or those that use the combination of partial proteolysis followed by acid hydrolysis are known for their degree of hydrolysis of proteins than the autolytic process described previously. Hence, these products are likely to have higher levels of free glutamic acid than yeast extracts. Under physiological conditions, these hydrolysates have a higher level of glutamate ions with a higher efficacy for flavor enhancement. These products are known worldwide for their versatility and ease of the application in a variety of savory food systems. Trends in consumer preference for all natural foods and a desire on the part of the food industry for a clear label has resulted in an increased demand for substitutes such as yeast extracts to serve the function of the commonly used flavor enhancers in processed foods. As described previously, the procedure for the production of such yeast extracts requires the use of two enzymes, that is phosphodiesterase and adenylate deaminase. One of the problems faced by the extract manufacturers is the escalating price of the enzymes, because the current usage levels of these enzymes in the food industry are relatively low. The total amounts produced are correspondingly small. As expected, the cost of such low volume products is high and will continue to increase. A substantial improvement in the market share for these yeast extracts in the flavor industry should result in an increase in the usage volumes for these enzymes. More competition would result in more reasonably priced enzymes available for production of extracts. However, it is not critical to operate such processes with highly purified enzymes. Indeed, one easy and certainly viable alternative is the use of crude enzyme preparations, since by adopting this procedure, the purification and stability problems could be circumvented. Further, this method is highly cost effective. However, one must bear in mind that when operating with crude enzyme preparations, there is a definite risk of side reactions competing for the same substrate, thereby causing significant reduction in flavor nucleotide yields also. There is currently a shortage of crude enzymes and the yeast extract manufacturers are not comfortable with the quality and price of those crude preparations. Accordingly, there is an essential need to make these enzymes available in commercial quantities with higher purity at affordable prices. The enzymes phosphodiesterase is known to be highly unstable after it is extracted from its native environment. The factors that influence stability are pH, temperature, moisture, ionic strength and shear pressure, and any combination of these effects. A more complete understanding of these effects should enable enzyme procedures to produce and commercialize more active and stable phosphodiesterase enzyme for use in extract production. Opportunities still exist to reduce the cost of enzyme used further without affecting the quality of the extracts. Use of immobilized enzymes to carry out the precise degradation of the RNA lowers costs substantially. An important feature of this method is that immobilization enhances enzyme stability and biocatalytic recovery. The economic benefit of using this approach is based on the fact that it allows for decreased cost, including those of labor and construction. Moreover, the immobilized enzymes are ideally suited for long-term continuous operation, which can bring about economic benefits to the processor. Studies have also shown that when the two enzymes critical for production of flavor enhancers are bound to an alkylamine ceramic support using glutaraldehyde, the pH optima of both enzymes tend to shift toward the more acidic side, thereby providing improved heat stability for both enzymes. A change of this nature could allow the reaction to be carried out at a higher temperature, that is 60 degrees centigrade, and a lower pH, that is 5. Although the technology is available and economically attractive, the extract manufacturers must grapple with this problem to decide when and how the immobilization technology will be applied to commercial processing. Current trends in biotechnology and in particular genetic engineering should widen significantly the scope of research in areas that relate to flavor enhancement. Indeed, this technology will be most useful to introduce specific genes, for example, those encoding the enzymes phosphodiesterase and adenylate deaminase into yeast in high copy number without affecting the RNA production capacity or its growth characteristics. A successful transformation would allow extract manufacturers to produce yeast extracts high in 5' nucleotides without relying on external sources of enzyme. The economic advantages of a change of this nature would be overwhelming. Current commercial strains do not yield more than 10 to 12% RNA that is of value to extract manufacturer. To realize higher yields of 5' nucleotides, the RNA content of the yeast must be increased, either by genetic means or by control of the processing of yeast. Unfortunately, genetic alterations of yeast to enhance its RNA content have received very little attention to date. Now let us see the methodology for plant cell immobilization. Plant cell culture has been considered as an alternative method for the production of flavors, colors and pharmaceutical substances which can be extracted from plants. One of the major limiting factors in the development of a commercial production system using plant cell culture has been the production cost of phytopharmaceuticals. The use of high biomass levels for extended periods would be one method of increasing productivity and hence reducing the cost. This can be achieved by the immobilization of plant cells. The immobilization of enzymes and cells has received increasing attention and used to produce amino acids and carbohydrates. The immobilization of microbial cells is not new. It has known for some time that cells will adhere to many surfaces in nature, that is polymers. Immobilization is the newest culture technology of plant cell and considered as to be the most natural. It has been defined as a technique which confines to a catalytically active enzyme or to a cell within a reactor system and prevents its entry into the mobile phase, which carries the substrate and product. Immobilization of plant cells has been used for a wide range of reactions which can be divided into three groups: biotransformation or bioconversion, synthesis from precursors and the de novo synthesis of compounds. Plant cells grow much more slowly. They produce targeted compounds more slowly. They are more easily disrupted by physical stress and their behavior, that is growth and synthesis of the plants, and that are influenced by chemical signals. Then by immobilization, the plant cells are protected from liquid shear forces. Moreover, immobilization facilitates the importance of cellular crosstalk which can establish intercellular communication by the action of signaling molecules. Freely suspended plant cells mostly accumulate their secondary metabolites in the stationary phase of their growth cycle. At the point of time their growth ceases. Entrapment of plant cells is one of the means to create non-growth condition under which the production of secondary metabolites may be improved. Immobilized plant cells have been employed to perform biotransformations and reported to have higher production rates than freely suspended cells. Immobilized plant cell cultures notably allow ease of continuous harvesting in the large scale, provided that metabolites are excreted into the medium. Some plant cells are able to release their secondary metabolites spontaneously, such as indoles, pyridines, quinolines, benzyl isoquinolines, quinolizidins, anthraquinones, capsaicins, opines, phenolics and terpenoids. In certain cases, immobilization appears to induce spontaneous release of these products that are normally stored within the cells in suspension. The release of metabolites into the medium can be improved by the methods of permeabilization and further in situ extraction. Two most popular approaches in permeabilization involve surface active chemicals such as DMSO, that is dimethyl sulfoxide, phenyl alcohol, chloroform, Triton X100 and hexadecyl trimethyl ammonium bromide and electroporation. Other permeabilization methods include ultrasonication and ionophoretic release, even though the use of these methods is discouraged due to the possibility of cell damage. In situ adsorption and extraction can be performed by adding inert hydrophobic chemicals, either liquid or solid, especially having high adsorption capacity for the hydrophobic plant products into the cultures. Now let us see what are all the advantages of this plant cell immobilization. Retention of biomass enables its continuous reutilization as a production system. A definite advantage with slow growing plant cells, example Papaver somniferum, have remained stable and active for up to 6 months. The immobilization of cells allows the use of higher biomass level compared to cell suspension culture because of the limitation of mass transfer and settling. The high cell density allows a reduction in contact in packed bed catalyst, leading to an increased volumetric productivity. The immobilization separates cells from medium and the product is extracellular, which will simplify downstream processing compared to extract from tissue. Immobilization allows a continuous process which increases volumetric productivity and allows the removal of metabolic inhibitors. Immobilization is compatible with non-growth associated product formation. Immobilization reduces some of the physical problems associated with the cultivation of plant cells, such as the formation of aggregates and susceptibility to mechanical damage, that is the shear stress, that are problems which do not affect immobilized system compared to cell culture. Now let us see the disadvantage of plant cell immobilization. Secretion of secondary metabolites requires cellular transport or artificially altered membrane permeability. The efficiency of the production process depends on the rate of release of products rather than actual rate of biosynthesis. The immobilization process may reduce biosynthetic capacity. Products must be released from the cell into medium. Release of single cells from cell aggregate may make processing of the product more difficult. The microenvironment favoring optimal production can be unfavorable for released secondary metabolites and cause their degradation or metabolization. The prerequisites for a successful immobilization of plant cells are as follows. That is, non-growing cells must produce products. Products must be released from the cell into the medium. To conclude, over the past few years, the increasing demand for natural products in the food industry has encouraged remarkable efforts towards the development of biotechnological process for the production of flavor compounds. Although protein engineering is still in its infancy with respect to application to food technology, there seems to be an almost limitless potential to develop more active or more stable enzymes by making targeted alterations to the native enzyme. Such changes would permit the selected tailored enzymes to perform certain specific process tasks more efficiently. However, the future prospects for development of such superactive, stable phosphodiesterase and adenylate deaminase enzymes are not clear. Thank you.